And now the final section for Chapter 2 of the Omnivore's Dilemma, Corn versus Everyone. When George Naylor's grandfather was farming, the typical Iowa farm was home to many different plant and animal species. At the top of the list were horses, because every farm needed working animals. After horses were cattle, chickens, and then corn. After corn came hogs, apples, hay, oats, potatoes, and cherries. Many Iowa farms also grew wheat, plums, grapes, and pears. This diversity, with many different types of crops, allowed the farmer to get by if prices fell for any one crop. The arrival of high-yield corn changed all that. It changed the very landscape of Iowa as corn drove out the other plants and animals and even many of the people. You can look at the infographic at the top that in 1920, you can see the list of what was grown, and it's a pretty considerable list of different crops that were grown. And by 2002, the crops were just corn, soybeans, hay, cattle, horses, hogs, oats, and sheep. So it is even less than a third of what they were growing in 1920. As yields grew and farmers grew more corn, prices dropped. Suddenly it was cheaper to feed corn to cattle instead of raising them on hay or grass. People also found it cheaper to feed corn to chickens and hogs. A new business emerged. Cattle, pigs, and chickens started being stuffed full of corn in large factory-type operations called feedlots. So the animals disappeared from the farm, and with them, the pastures and hay fields and fences. The horses began to disappear when farmers started buying tractors. In the place of the pastures, the farmers planted more corn and sometimes soybeans. Now the corn began to push out people too. A farm of corn and soybeans doesn't require nearly as much human labor as the old-fashioned farm full of different kinds of crops. Bigger tractors and machines, chemical weed killers, and artificial fertilizer made it easy for one farmer to handle more acres. Growing corn is just riding tractors and spraying, Naylor told me. It only takes a few weeks of work over a year to raise 500 acres of industrial corn. So the farms have gotten bigger, but fewer people live on them. When Naylor's grandfather arrived in America, the population of Greene County was near its peak, 16,467 people. In the 2006 census data, it had fallen to below 10,000. The town of Churchton, in the center of the county, is like a ghost town. The barber shop, a food market, and a local movie theater have all closed in recent years. The middle school has so few students left it can no longer field a baseball team. It takes 4 local high schools to field a single football team, the Jefferson, Scranton, Peyton, Churchton Rams. Just about the only business left standing in Churchton is the grain elevator, the tall structure where the corn is stored before it's shipped elsewhere. The elevator stands at the far end of town like a windowless concrete skyscraper. It still makes money because, people or no people, the corn keeps coming in, more of it every year. And that is the end of this chapter.